THC. How you all doing out there? Welcome to the THC Show. It's where we talk about THC for a couple hours every week. Truth, hope, and change is what we decided the THC could stand for. It can stand for many things, true healthcare, but we decided to go with truth, hope, and change. And on the show, we try to talk about things that expose the truth and give us some hope and maybe allow for some change down the road. On the show today, we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn from cannabis.ca join us for the 420 session and beyond, as always. And we'll have a visit with the CSP Healing Wave RV. We'll talk about a bunch of different things today. First and foremost, coming up for us is court. The CSP has been providing cannabis as an option, a safe option for people on the downtown east side of Vancouver and those that would venture into this area for over 6.5 years now. We started it before there was any legalization going on. There was nothing to apply for in the way of licenses from Health Canada. We did alert the city and the VPD about what our plans were to make it as easy as possible for people to get high-dose edibles, and we were going to give them out, maybe 5 or 6 edibles and a couple joints per person to about 250 to 350 people at a time. And we did all of that. For 2.5 years we did that until the city finally passed a motion saying they would support what we were doing. Problem was that legalization had happened. This so-called fake legalization had happened in Canada. And before the city would then license us like they said they would, they said we had to go and apply to Health Canada and get a license there. That was over 3 years ago now. That was 3 years ago on the 16th of September that we applied for that we applied for the license or exemption to the Cannabis Act to be able to continue doing what we're doing. We also put in an application for an emergency exemption in the meantime, and none of that happened. We had correspondence back and forth several times with Health Canada over the last 3 years, starting with the Zoom meeting that happened, it'll be 3 years ago this coming December, that we had a Zoom meeting with my lawyer and with Health Canada, where they said that there'd be licenses coming for us in early January that next year. Although they didn't say that next year, so it may be a January yet to come, because certainly the exemption of the licenses have yet to come. Then about a year ago last March, the VPD, on behalf of the federal government in Canada, launched an investigation into us and determined that we were selling cannabis as we told them we were, and charged me and a couple of my colleagues with selling without a license. And that's what's going on with court, coming right up here. We have flipped it on Health Canada, where it's now a charter challenge, and it's on the 3rd. Last week I was convinced it was the 2nd, but it was actually the 3rd of October, which I believe is a Tuesday. So it's going to be a show day that we get this preliminary hearing off the ground. Hopefully that's what it's scheduled to do. And both sides will present to the judge, and we'll see if the judge believes there's enough to move forward with a trial that would happen in mid-November coming up. So we need lots of support for this. This is the moment in time where hopefully we can get a judge to look at this with a fresh pair of eyes who's not corrupt. Wouldn't that be nice? And so for those of you who have experience with the CSP or with opioid substitution, this is a good time to write it down on paper and send your experiences off to Health Canada. Send them to me, and I'll get them to my lawyer, and we'll present them into the court system. And hopefully we can get some resolve there. Hopefully we can get some stability, some security, some ability to be able to offer this life-saving option that we're doing and have for going on 7 years now, with a little bit of dignity from a storefront instead of from an RV. You see, we're in an RV because when the city said we needed to have a license to be able to stay in the storefront, and we applied to Health Canada, they did not respond back in any timely fashion at all. As I mentioned, it's been over 3 years, and in fact now they've sent us a letter of denial that denying our application after, it was 3 weeks ago, so they didn't quite hit the 3-year mark before they denied us our application. But to deny our application is abominable. It's criminal. It's outrageous. It's murder. This is one of the most corrupt experiences, I guess, that I've ever had with government, and I've been dealing with the prohibition of cannabis for 25 or more years, all my life really. But for them to deny us the ability to continue doing what we've been doing for going on 7 years couldn't be any more criminal or outrageous. Because during those 7 years, we've dispensed multiple tens of millions of milligrams of edible cannabis to people that were using it to get through withdrawal and get off of those drugs. We have hundreds of people that have done that successfully. We've got over 270 people that are members of the CSP that get their edibles for free every 4 days, 420 milligrams. We've never had a problem. We've never had a complaint, other than with law enforcement and with governments and trying to get them to do the right thing. But as far as what we've been doing in providing cannabis, cannabis flower, cannabis concentrates, and cannabis edibles, the only problems you could refer to would be that some people, maybe even most people, when they're first going down that journey of using edibles, they consume a little too much. Tea. And that's an uncomfortable experience. I mean, it is one of the problems that we have, is convincing people that they shouldn't eat too much right off the bat, that they should start fairly low and they should go slow from there. But we're dealing with people that are hurting, they're in pain, they're hungry, they're impoverished, and so they get some fancy looking edibles. They know that those edibles are going to help make them feel better, and they tend to eat too much, and then they don't feel better, they feel terrible. It doesn't kill anybody, so there's that, which is good, because we're dealing with trying to provide an option against all those other substances that are killing people. Thousands of people here in British Columbia, tens of thousands across the nation, and far more than that when you go down to the United States, 100,000 plus in the United States, just all in this last several year period, where for some reason the drug supply that's on the street is poisoned. And I'd like to know how that happened and how that is continuing to happen. It sure seems to feed right into the motives and the agenda of the people that want to maintain prohibition and all the rest of it. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But here we are providing an option for people that works really well without any significant problems whatsoever. And our federal government, the Health Canada division, and that Department of Health Canada, the Special Licensing and Exemptions Department, it's their job. It's their job to provide exemptions and licenses for exactly what we're doing. That there couldn't be anything that would fit better into what it is that they're trying to provide exemptions and special licenses for than what we're doing here. These special licenses or exemptions should be provided where the public's interest is engaged, where there's a public safety issue that's being addressed, or where there's scientific information that can be collected and used. And on all three of those counts, we couldn't qualify anymore. And I'm sure there's no other group or organization, citizens initiative, harm reduction out there that would be looking for such an exemption that would have a more compelling case than what we do. In any three of those areas, we qualify in spades and then some, absolutely for sure. It's with the thousands and tens of thousands of deaths across Canada in the last several years to do with this poison drug supply, providing the safe option of cannabis, not a safer option of other opioid-based medicines that the taxpayer pays for and the pharmaceutical companies get enriched for providing. What we're providing is actually safe, not safer. What we're providing gets people off of those drugs with great effectiveness as opposed to those people trying to get off those drugs by moving on to other drugs and not even going through withdrawal, or trying to go through withdrawal and not making it because of the serious pain involved in that. And that's where cannabis edibles comes into play. So we couldn't be more about what is in the public's interest than we are. We couldn't be more about public safety than what we are. I mean, cannabis is a safe product to use, and especially when compared to the other, I wouldn't call them similar, but inebriants or euphorics or, substances that people use to escape, those sorts of things. There's nothing like cannabis as far as being safe goes. So providing cannabis as a safe option and making it easily available to those people that aren't able to access it couldn't be more in the public safety's interest, in my opinion. We're getting people out of that behavior that puts their lives at risk and kills many of them. And it's not just the death when it comes to the overdose crisis. The very act of overdosing deprives the brain of oxygen and is extremely hard on human beings to go through. And people aren't the same. They're not as quick as they were before. Their brains are not functioning the way they should be. They're zombie-like in many ways. They're not themselves. And that, in and of itself, is kind of the death of an individual. Many of these people that start out are bright individuals. They're high-performing individuals. The opioid crisis exists mainly because of doctors prescribing and overprescribing opioids to people. And so that the majority of those people that they're prescribing them to are not the homeless on the downtown east side. Those people don't even have doctors. They can't even get doctors. Doctors don't even want to talk to them. So the majority of the people that are inflicted and afflicted with the addiction to these opioids, which happens once you've taken them for a period of time because of the way that they work in the human body, that to then try stopping those opioid-based medicines is very, very difficult. The withdrawal is real, and it is really, really tough. And it's not just from opioids as well. It's those other street drugs, the powders, the pills, but it's also from alcohol. And so here we are with a safe option during a public health emergency that we have demonstrated successfully for going on 7 years is extremely effective in rescuing people from addiction and saving their lives. It is the number one harm reduction option that's available and talked about within the public realm. So it's certainly within the public's interest. They're very interested in this opioid crisis as it touches just about every family in Canada. Almost everybody knows somebody that's been killed or stricken by overdose because of this epidemic of misuse of opioids caused by doctors on behalf of pharmaceutical companies. It's a terrible, terrible thing that's going on, and we have a wonderful solution, and we've been demonstrating that for all of this time. With great success during our demonstration, except for our ability to influence the very people that need to be influenced by this demonstration, those that hold the gate closed to accessing cannabis proper dose medicine. And as for research, here we are on the downtown east side of Vancouver. We have affected the very lives of over 270 people that have become members of our society, who access cannabis high dose and proper dose edibles and no longer use the hard drugs. We also have hundreds of people that come to us that just can't be members because we can't expand that members list without government support at this point. So we don't turn them away. We have a separate program for them. They don't get 420 milligrams every 4 days of their choosing, but they can choose to take a joint or an edible every day for free. And so there's hundreds more people. The point is that we have face-to-face frontline access with hundreds and hundreds of the most affected and at-risk people, the visible addicts. And if that's not an opportunity for research, then I don't know what is. If Health Canada is engaged in any research, we don't see it here. They certainly haven't researched us in any face-to-face way. There may well be data being collected from some of the other harm reduction initiatives that Health Canada is supporting. But surely they understand how valuable it is to have us doing what we're doing and meeting these people, hundreds of them, every single day, and being able to interact with them. For the last number of months, we've been taking people aside and making video testimonials from them and taking letters that have been handed into the lawyer to deal with our court case coming up. There's a whole bunch of research that's been already done by us. It's ongoing, and it could be so much more. If we had the support of the federal government, that would mean so much with respect to our ability to properly gain the information that they want. I mean, they could just tell us what kind of questions they want us to ask these people, what sort of information they're looking for, what data is important, and we're right here ready, willing, and able to provide that. So we know that we qualify in all three areas of what it is that it takes to get an exemption or a special license. But Health Canada doesn't see it that way. They say we don't qualify in any three of those, and so we'll see what the judge has to say when all the information is put before him. The other two areas that Health Canada has identified that is a problem for them in licensing us or exempting us is that they only want legal cannabis, regulated cannabis, to be provided. Even though for going on 7 years we've been providing cannabis from the unregulated market without any problem. So that's a sticking point for them. We're not sure why. One would think that the reason would be that they want it to be safe cannabis and that there could be a problem with unregulated cannabis. And so the regulations are there to make sure that the cannabis is safe. And that's why. 419. Kind of perfect timing because I got 1 minute to tell you the other reason that we think that Health Canada wants us to use regulated product. And that is that the Trudeau cartel, the head honcho of all of this legalization mess, is doing just fine taking his $1 a gram from all the cannabis that's being provided in the legal marketplace. And I think he wants a cut of what we're doing here as well. He wants to make some money off the backs of the poor people that are using it to get off of opioids and other drugs. And if he can't get his cut, then those people be damned, and they be damned to overdose and death. And Health Canada also thinks that doctors have to be on board when people are using edibles because I guess they're dangerous. But they're not anywhere near as dangerous as the cigarettes that you can buy in the local store, or the pharmaceuticals that your doctor is going to prescribe, or the alcohol that's in the store, or even the white sugar and processed foods that are out there causing type 2 diabetes and all kinds of health issues. It's not as dangerous as those. But anyway, that's what's going on. It's 4:20, which means Sir Wells is here.
Sir Magnuson.
I'm kind of stuck on that Sir business.
I know, no, you're serving me up all the time.
I know.
Sir Magnuson.
Mr. Wells.
I'm stuck here.
It used to be well.
Well, it used to be Wells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still is probably.
They were asking what time, October 2nd. Is it on that piece of paper that I sent you?
It's 9 a.m.
9 a.m.?
9 a.m.
Or
It's
10?
courtroom, no, 9 a.m. Courtroom 304.
Okay, 9 a.m.
On the 3rd.
All right. And also, no, I don't. But last week you said October 2nd, so maybe we should look. But anyways.
Yeah, I did look. I wrote it down. I made a mental note of it. I'm not going to make a mistake twice on it.
Okay.
I'm hell-bent on the truth.
All right.
Whether we successfully find it or not.
Truth, hope, and change.
I
right?
know. and my whole life was that long before this show happened. I mean, it just represents what I'm trying to do in my life. And so I want to tell the truth. And so I thought I was last week. I don't know why I thought it was the 2nd. But, the human brain is funny that way. And The truth can be elusive sometimes.
Yeah.
And if the right person who you trust, he's wearing the right uniform, tells you something, well, you just believe it.
You believe it.
So the uniform that I'm wearing, the show that I have, the reputation that I have, people tend to believe me.
Yep.
Some people, not everybody, not the smart ones.
Yeah.
But I try to tell the truth because of that. So we wanted to make that correction right off the bat on the show here, that it's going to be the 3rd
to the 5th.
of October till the 5th. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah.
It's a preliminary hearing, but still very crucial to affect the way that the judge is thinking about what's going on here. So a whole bunch of people there in support of us would be a really good idea.
Our friend Gazer, they're trying to take us home now.
In New Zealand? Oh,
yeah.
Man, I'm so sorry.
Because he made $5,000 a year since 2015, so they're calling it proceeds of crime, and all he was doing is helping the people that were sick and poor, right? So, so that's what he was reporting here on our feed.
So terrible. The governments are so corrupt.
I know, eh?
They're taking people's homes and take their children away, to take their reputation away from them. All the things that happen when you use the criminal law against people, it really needs to be withheld and used only against people who are actual criminals, where there is an intent to harm other people that resulted in actual harm being done to people, not somebody whose intent is to provide a forbidden medicine because they know it works to somebody who's suffering. That's not a criminal.
No.
That is not a criminal. It's a criminal as far as the government is concerned, because the government has this rule of law where they think that whatever the rule is, well, that's the law, and if you break the rule, then you broke the law and you're a criminal. Well, I'll tell you, I am not a criminal doing what I'm doing here.
Yeah, right.
I may be seen as that in that lens that the government is using, but I know way better than that. My mom and dad taught me way better than that. The Bible that I studied as a young man taught me way better than that. I'm not a religious person, but I'm a strict and stout ethical person. I believe in doing the right thing, and I really think that governments need to be doing the right thing, especially when they're not dictators and tyrants, but they're public servants. They need to be doing the right thing.
More tea.
Excuse me. Yeah, more tea.
More tea.
They need to be doing their due diligence on things. And before they make something a crime, it better damn well be a crime.
Yeah.
Like, I get it if it's a dictator.
Saving people's lives is not a crime.
It's not a crime. Well, using cannabis is not a crime.
Yeah.
It never was a crime. Growing plants, providing them to people who want them, using them for whatever you want to use it for, nobody's being harmed.
Mm-hmm.
There's no intent to do any harm to anybody, so how can it be a crime? There is nobody that had any harm done to them.
Yeah.
So how can it be a crime?
I know they even called Batman a criminal when he was helping people too. How was that a crime, right?
Up against a corrupt system.
Yeah, right? Like just because he was out there being a vigilante and helping people when they're being robbed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, right? He was a criminal.
I would not be a criminal.
No.
It doesn't sit well with me. Not how my parents raised me. Not what I believe in my heart is the right thing to be. I would not intentionally harm anybody. It's not who I am. Yet, according to these laws, I'm a heinous criminal.
Oy. Oh,
tens of millions of milligrams of these dangerous high-dose edibles. We've just been giving them away to people.
You got so many holes in your backyard. You got so much stuff buried back there. All the jewels and cash and everything.
Where are the proceeds of crime here?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, Gazer's got his $5,000 a year. There isn't even that here. I mean, I've been doing this for... we've been selling now for over 3 years, because we had to do that once we went off the streets into a storefront. We had to pay for the storefront.
Yeah, thank you.
Over here.
Yeah, okay, well, that's too far. I could reach this one.
And besides, when we went into the storefront, it was because the city told us they were going to have a license plate.
Exactly, yeah.
Go find yourself a storefront, you know? So, there's nothing criminal going on here.
No, we're just saving people's lives.
Lately, for whatever reason, I know the reason. I mean, the budget's not working properly right now. We've become too successful.
Yeah.
The word is spread through the neighborhood that there's a free joint or a free edible, and good people that'll talk to you and listen to you in an RV at Cordova in Maine.
Yeah.
And we went through 340 joints in one day.
Wow.
A few days ago.
Last week was like 250. Now it's 340. Wow. But we're also selling some of those joints for $1 too. I know that, right?
Of those joints I'm mentioning, they're not all being given away, but the majority of them are.
Yes.
The rest are being sold somewhere around cost at $1 a joint.
$1 a joint, yeah.
We have a 5 joint maximum for people because we have to make sure that we keep having joints for people.
Yeah.
But the joints and the edibles that go out for free have really escalated. I'm thrilled that we're doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not unhappy
That's
about
340 people that potentially have been potentially.
Well, of the 340, we'll say
maybe
200 were probably given away, and maybe the other 140 were sold, something like that. That's about the ratio that we're dealing with right now.
Wow.
And so 200 people.
That's people buying the 5
and
for
you only
5.
get one. So that's 200 different people. That's not, one person coming up 200 times. They don't get to come up twice.
People who buy the 5 for 5 and take 5 joints also too, right? So that because there's a maximum of 5 joints.
Yep.
So, yeah.
But we're providing a lot of joints out there, and there's not much profit.
We do have some of the special people that come from
when you're giving it away.
Surrey that we give 10 joints to, but that's because they come all the way from Surrey, right?
It's rare.
Yes.
We try not to do that because other people, they're not getting the same deal.
Yes,
so.
yeah.
But we also try to have a little bit of one-to-one with people here, and there's certain people that obviously need our help more than others.
And I've explained to staff that we might be the only person that person actually talked to that day, right? I know that they might be repeating the same thing over and over each day, but they're talking to you.
One of the things that I say over and over again all day is, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because...
Don't tell anybody.
We have to have.
Kind of late to say that.
No, but as far as when we stretch our rules, like you say, when we give somebody 10 joints instead of 5 joints because they're coming all the way in from out of town.
Then there's 2 people with them.
Well, if there's 2 people, that's fine. Just 2 people.
Yeah, but there's that one lady who picks up for her husband who can't make it.
Yeah. So when there's those exceptions.
Yeah, those exceptions, right?
And there are lots of exceptions.
Yeah.
I always say, don't tell anybody.
No.
We'll do it for you. Don't tell anybody. Sometimes we'll say, don't make a habit of it.
Yeah.
We'll do it this time for you, but don't make a habit.
I've asked them to see a picture of their friend on their phone. Can I see a picture of your friend that you're talking about? And a lot of them go, I don't have a phone.
My policy is that if you make a mistake, that you err on the side of compassion.
Yes, yeah.
You give out a little more than really, maybe we get scammed a little bit. Maybe somebody's sad.
Get scammed.
maybe the sad story that they're telling, isn't really true.
Yeah.
But I would rather make a mistake and give somebody a joint that really probably doesn't deserve it based on our policies, than withhold one from somebody who could really use that. It could change their life that day.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we give out all these joints. I remember very well back in the day, being a young person. Weed wasn't always easy to find.
Nope.
Sometimes you'd wait.
Good weed was very hard to find.
And sometimes you would wait, for hours in a parking lot for a dealer that would never show up. Or, or when he did show up, he didn't have anything worth having. Or, so many things like that. So many times as a younger person walking through my life, I would have really loved to join.
Yeah.
If somebody had said, hey man, and lots of times, sometimes, not often enough, but sometimes somebody's smoking a joint and they'll offer you some.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful moment in time. That's meeting a new connection in life. That's why we'll get to that.
But no, I'm just saying that it's right? Because of the camaraderie that we have there, right?
For sure.
If people sharing their stuff, hey man, you gotta try some of this. My buddy, got it from somewhere, and that's what we do, right?
People in lounges or people that are consumers and you know it. It's when you're out there in the wilderness. You're out there standing at a bus stop.
Yeah.
And you're jonesing, you're hurting, you're wishing you had a joint to smoke because something's happened in your life, or you're just whatever. There's reasons people smoke weed. It's medicine. It provides a mood reset.
Yeah.
Lots of different things.
It slows you down and allows you.
And then there's a guy over there standing by the tree, smoking a reefer.
Yeah.
You go, oh, what?
Good.
And you look over and he gives you a little nod, and you go over and he shares the joint with you, and you have a little conversation. Sometimes you exchange numbers, and sometimes you exchange ideas, and the world is a better place.
Or just a friendly hello, have a great day, and you never see that person ever again, right?
And sometimes when you're the one smoking the joint, and someone comes along and they ask you for a toke, or they look like, and you offer or whatever, I mean, that person's like, oh man, you just saved my life. I mean, seriously.
I get that when they got a joint, they the light. Hey man, you got a light? Thanks, man, you just saved my life, right? I was standing at Trout Lake Park, and different people came up and asked for a light for their joints. So that's becoming a little more common now. How's the MKU?
So the MKU's good.
You like that?
Thanks, Michelle.
Yes. Hey.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we can.
So the point is that giving a joint to somebody in need is a wonderful thing.
It is.
It is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It's as good as giving someone a sandwich whose stomach is empty, and there's no prospect of food. That joint can change their whole day.
Yeah.
It can just put them on a different path, and we get told this all the time.
That's why we
know
sometimes make exceptions, right? Because some people we know need that second joint to change their day.
That's what I said.
Like Brian.
There's certain people around here that we've come to know
personally
that really do need our help.
Yes, they do. Yes.
And so we're a little more generous to those people. But
like
I always say, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, karma brings us to
because I want them to know that what they're getting is something that's over and above what's normal.
Yeah. We
do have to have the conversations here with people about the fact that no government is supporting us. We don't have funding for this. We don't have a pool of money that we're dipping into to be able to buy joints, and that's our mandate. This is what's happening out of the goodness of our hearts. This is what we want to do. We want to be here to make people's days, to change their lives, to give them that option. And so we're thrilled. It really brings such joy to my heart to be able to do this. I'm thrilled to be able to do that. But it's getting a little tight, to be doing that. And, so we need to find other ways, and we are. We're finding other more creative ways to make sure that we have that for people, not cut down what it is that we're doing, but find a way to subsidize what it is that we're doing in a way that makes business sense. Because I have to pay the rent here, and I don't want to get behind, and I have to pay the bills, and these things need to be paid, and I have to be able to keep bringing in the products that we need. So there needs to be an ongoing cash flow going on here to do all of that. So I need to make the right decisions to be able to make sure that we can maintain what we're doing. But we're not turning anybody away. We're not shorting anybody, other than that we do restrict people to one free
We've
joint.
had to say no occasionally.
Oh yeah, to people that want more than the one joint and more than the one edible.
Yeah. Or, hey man, can you give me a 5-bag until tomorrow or something like that?
We just can't do that.
Yeah, that's not what we're here for. No.
Well, that has another effect too when you do that.
Especially down here.
There's a pretty good chance that they're not going to pay you back.
Or they're not going to remember that
they won't remember. You won't remember. We can't have a long list of people that owe money. We just can't do it. So we have a strict no credit policy for sure.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happens when you lend somebody something is you don't see them again. They never come up with that $10 that they owe you. They just never feel like they're $10 ahead enough to come and say, okay, here you go, I owe you this.
Yeah.
So they avoid you. They walk around you. They go on different streets. They see you coming, they walk away. We learned this back when we had the herb school, one block over there. A wonderful, amazing 3.5 years.
You want to help people, so let's not front them so they can keep coming to you.
So some people we didn't want to have around because they were a pain in the ass. They bothered other people. They made scenes that weren't positive.
Yeah.
And so, we put up signs that would say, 15-minute stay only. Now, there's lots of people who would stay for hours because they knew that sign didn't really apply to them. They were there. They were creating ambience. We were bringing education to the table. They were positive, sparks in the room. But for those people that were there to drain other people, to not be positive, they would read that sign and they would know it's about them. And then, so most of the time they would just leave without having to be asked after their 15 minutes. But the other thing is that if we really didn't want somebody to come back around again, we would just give them some credit.
Yeah.
We'd give them $15-20 on credit, and then you never see them again. But I don't want that here. Even though we've dedicated ourselves here, and that was the herb school back in the day. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't understand the need for our services as harm reduction in the neighborhood. We opened here one block over because we were offered cheap rent, $100 a month, and we could use this space.
Yeah.
And David wanted to use that space for planning the 420 rallies and the other protests and all the things that we were doing. And of course, we're going to provide cannabis from there because that's the other thing that David was doing. So we really didn't have an understanding when we first opened there about what value we were to the people that were in trouble in the neighborhood. We weren't really there for that. Mm-hmm. We knew we were in a very tough neighborhood. We weren't there to save the neighborhood. It wasn't in our conversations. We didn't understand that. We were there because we were offered cheap rent and we could have a storefront.
Yeah.
And that we knew that many of the people in our community wouldn't go there. Some would and some wouldn't. But because it was cheap rent and it was a storefront, you know, how do you say no to that deal?
Yeah.
Right? And in fact, the deal was $100 a month because Chris and Sue, who had possession and control of that space, offered it to David to use it as a harm reduction center.
Yeah.
But they understood that. We didn't really understand that. I mean, I know David knew it was harm reduction.
Yeah.
But we didn't really get the value of the high dose edibles. We were more about selling flour.
Yeah.
We had hash and flour, and that was about it.
Yeah.
It was before the days of butter, or right around the same days as butter, but no shatter and anything like that. There wasn't live resin and stuff.
No.
So, Lady Marijuana, a woman who had lost her daughter to the chaos of the downtown east side, was being pimped out and drug addicted and thrown out of a window, a 5-story window, and died. And she was down here trying to come to grips with all of that.
Wow.
And so she really migrated towards the herb school, and she was with us every day there. And she was making edibles, mostly for herself, because that was really helping her with her pain of loss. And so she started making cakes and brownies for us.
Yeah.
And so we had Lady Marijuana cakes and brownies at the herb school. Well, it was the cakes and the brownies that was getting people off the opioids.
Yeah.
And so we'd have people coming to see us, sitting across the table from us, and they'd be saying, "Man, thank you so much for what you have here, because now I don't do those other drugs anymore," you know?
Yeah.
And so that's how I came to understand how valuable the proper dose, the higher dose edibles were for getting people through the withdrawal stage, and then in replacing those hard drugs, because the use of those hard drugs, they're not just using because they can't quit. That's why they're addicted, because they can't quit. But they're using because they had underlying health issues. They had, depression, anxiety, pain, all kinds of stuff going on, PTSD. So much stuff going on with these people that were using cannabis for those reasons, to get out of that. So that, in any case, I've digressed, and I think I'm going to have another puff and a drink of tea and try to calm myself down a little bit.
Gazer says here that in New Zealand you can sell plants and seeds from the black market, I believe, to the legal market, and it don't ask, don't tell, and it's legal. But he's in trouble because he was growing the plants. So he says, but tell me how you can make seeds for plants and for the legal market without growing them, right?
Yeah.
I guess
you need to be an alchemist.
Those people, or they probably have a license to grow to sell to the government or something.
That's typically how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is chaotic, and it's hypocritical. It's upside down. It makes no sense as they try to bring in some form of respecting people's rights in an environment where they're certainly not respecting your rights.
No.
It gets crazy.
I
mean, here we are in British Columbia. You can buy cannabis in government stores that have licenses. We could go and get a bag of weed from a government store, and we could put it on the table there, and we could say, there you go, there's some legal cannabis. And then we could take this cannabis from over here. I guess they can't see that, eh?
Well, now they can. Sorry about that, people. We had a little problem there.
We call them technical difficulties.
Yeah,
yes.
We're back.
So, then you can have this cannabis, which is probably superior to what you're going to get at the government store, even their high-end stuff. We got beautiful cannabis here. This is black cherry chemo, I believe.
When I heard some dough.
Oh, man.
You got something dough?
Dough God.
Dough God. It's
Beautiful
really,
dough God right now.
Really, I've never heard of it.
So this is really, really nice.
Right here?
You can't do this at the government store. You can't pick up a jar and give it a smell. You want to smell it?
Smell that, yeah.
Really nice. This is all coated in crystal.
Stay right here, right now.
I don't know if you can see it, but
imagine if we had pillows that smell like this.
oh man, we got to do that. We gotta do that. Yeah. In the case of a good night's sleep, one of the pillowcases.
Jeez.
Somebody's gonna do that now. But you can have those two plants, and one of them, the government's going to sell to you. They're happy to sell it to you. They're going to make money at selling it to you. And the other one, well, they're going to take your money and they're going to use it to chase you down and put you in handcuffs, confine you somewhere, ruin your reputation, charge you money, maybe seize your property. I mean, all kinds of different bad things are going to happen because you found this cannabis and it's not this cannabis. But the cannabis they're not different, really, although this one's probably, like I said, a little bit better than that one. You can probably trust the illegal cannabis a little more than you can trust the legal cannabis, because the legal cannabis has had all kinds of trouble with callbacks, the overuse of pesticides and fertilizers.
Radiation.
Jeez. There's a class action lawsuit. There's many, many people that are sick, as a result, organogram. And so, you're a public servant, and maybe the court system determines that if you're involved with this cannabis, you are a nasty criminal and you're a subject to all sorts of penalties.
Yeah.
If you're involved in this cannabis, well, thank you very much. We'll take your money and you go right ahead and get yourself as high as you want, but don't expect it to be anything medical because we're not involved in that. That's ludicrous.
Oh, God.
It's ludicrous.
It is.
Yeah, we're going to talk a bit about lounges.
Yeah.
We lost a good friend of ours, another one. I don't know what happened to Derek. I do know that Derek Kendall, who just passed away, had been in hospital for a while, and he was not well. I didn't know that he was in hospital, but I found that out because then they announced that he died. But those that did know, they said that he wasn't really expected to come out.
Yeah. The Bud Depot guy? Yes.
Do you know what happened to Derek?
No.
So a year ago, he had a bad accident. Somebody dropped a very heavy weight.
Oh yeah, you told me it's a very 700-pound weight, not 70-pound weight or something.
I don't know what it was, and I don't want to say if if it can't be accurate.
He had
Truth, hope, and change, right?
Yeah.
But
he had a real bad head injury.
He had a very bad head injury. Something very heavy dropped on him, and it wasn't just his head. There was other things involved in his body that were not okay anymore after that, and I don't know if that's what took him or not. But he was too young to go, in my opinion. You might have known him as Camel, the Macho Man. He was a stage entertainer that was at many of our events. He and I co-hosted different things together over the years, and he will be missed. He was such a big personality, a very generous, good guy. So yeah, I miss Derek. And there's going to be they're raising money for Derek. I got the link up on my Facebook page, Neil Magnuson. You can see that. Maybe we can put it here somehow.
I'll try
afterwards.
Yeah. And
have it in the thread there. There's going to be an online auction. We're going to donate a CSP hoodie to that. You can donate some money because he didn't leave a lot of money. He was a generous guy. Generous people don't usually keep a whole bunch for themselves, I guess,
Yeah.
And so the people or persons looking after his final rest need some money to do that. And so, hopefully we can all help out a little bit. And I call out to all my fellow...
So they have a GoFundMe going.
Cannabis, yes, there's a GoFundMe going. I should have the information for that, Dan.
I'll look it up and I'll throw it in there after the show.
You want to look it up on my phone?
Yeah, well, we can't. I could share it. I could share it from your phone. Sure, it'll come up as you sharing it. So, sure.
I removed some of my content. Apparently, they just said.
You're in trouble.
Usually.
What did you do now?
I don't know. This is something I don't usually do.
Was it the GoFundMe? Jeez.
So here it is here.
All right, let's see.
I think the information should be up in there, maybe. If not, just screw it on a little bit farther and there'll be another one.
There we
Sooner,
go.
there we are.
All right, come on. I gotta do it.
Yeah, very shocked to hear about Derek. He also had a podcast, or was involved in a podcast that ran regularly. I think him and Matt did that. I was a guest on their show a couple of times. Such an amazing, positive character. He always had this big laugh and a big hug for people. And yeah, I'm gonna miss that guy. I couldn't believe that when I saw it. When I saw it, I thought it must be somebody else with the same name. But then, nope.
Okay, we did it.
We did it.
We did it.
So what we want to hear is there's a GoFundMe in memory of Derek the Camel Kendall.
It should pop up.
Oh, it's going to be on there?
Well, it should. I just put it on there, so I don't know.
Okay. Anyway. So I don't see. It's just a GoFundMe. It'll come up on there. I don't see where you can send money.
Oh, donate.
Yeah,
donate
I know it's a donate button here, but I don't see it because there's also you can donate it to Christina Lone, who was his partner at WeWriter. So WEE Writer WRITER at hotmail.com. So WeWriter at hotmail.com is where you can send some cash directly. And let's lay Derek to rest without it costing his loved ones any more than it already is. And certainly my sympathies and condolences to all of his family and the people that knew him. There's a lot of people going to be pretty unhappy about Derek passing away.
They might have something about it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now it came
it's
out.
there. Okay,
all right.
Good.
Okay.
You just never know, right? You never know the people that are around you that you're ever gonna see them again. You just never know. So, love is the answer to most problems in the world, and love is the way to live your life.
Yep. It's better than hate.
Love the people you love.
You don't want to live your life hating people. That's a grumpy old life. Right.
I've talked about that on the show lots of times.
What, being grumpy?
Yeah. About people who can't let stuff go.
Yeah.
That there's some people who've been harmed so seriously by other people for whatever reason, and maybe those other people are completely guilty and they should be hung by their toes till they die. I don't know. But for a person who was the victim of these things, to hold that hate for the rest of your life does you so much harm.
Yeah.
It compounds the damage done. I know it's difficult not to. It is the natural reaction. You're going to obsess over your hate for this person and what they did. But the quicker you can let go of that, the better for yourself and for the world in general. The thing is, people don't want to let it go.
No.
Because they want the perpetrator to be held responsible.
Forever.
So they're going to be living examples of how they were harmed by this person, so that the world forever knows that this person did a bad thing to them. And it's a skewed logic,
It is.
You got to do what's best for you. You got to do what's best for your family, for your friends, for the people that you meet every day. You don't want to be that grumpy, angry person that just can't let go of something horrible that happened. Be the shining example of someone who had something really bad happen and you managed to get to the other side of it. And maybe you got some advice for people on how to do that.
Sometimes it takes decades for people to get there.
Sometimes it does, and some never.
You just don't know, because sometimes
it's a process.
We know that people can be really mean to other people, so there might be some things out there that
it's not. I'm not trying to make it sound so easy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's really important to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Like
the person who kills your son and is in jail now.
How do you let that go? But you have to.
Yeah. It takes time.
What would Gandhi do? What would Jesus do? What would the great Stoics do? And what is the right thing to do?
Just because they did it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Jesus or Gandhi or anybody.
No, but those are people that are used as examples of how to deal with these types of things.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Forgiveness is key. So a person was done to in a horrible way for something, who knows what it is. Why did that happen? It's not always just because this person's evil. it's not always because this person just hated this other person so badly. Many times it's people not understanding what it is that they're doing. Being angry themselves about something that they maybe think the other person did that they didn't or did.
Yeah.
Or angry,
It
all
could
kinds
be
of things. I mean, this is the point, and that's what I say. Until you can get over and get beyond what happened and now become a positive spark again, until that happens, you're a negative spark.
Yeah.
You're someone who's going to ruin somebody's day. You're in a bad mood, you're grumpy, it's nothing to do with this person.
No, you just took it out on
But
somebody
you took
else.
it out on somebody else, or it overflowed
Or
onto them.
road rage on the road, or you
Yeah,
swearing at somebody, or something like that, yeah.
Most people are not typically angry at what it is they think they're angry at.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're boiling over at what
Yeah.
just happened. But in reality, what that boiling over is a way to express and get out those feelings that they have from something that happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, I like to talk about these things. I've had some success myself in figuring out strategies to be able to deal with some of life's slings and arrows. And I want to pass that on to people because it can help, right? And I want to help. Yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, get your clock back for you.
Okay. Do I need? I guess I do sometimes.
You do sometimes need the clock.
This was a good joint to Michelle, by the way.
Yeah,
the
that
MKU.
MKU, eh?
Well, I'm just realizing I got the half a joint in my hand, and I've been rambling on here for a while.
Yeah, that person really sure knows what she's doing there.
Yeah.
She grows
Some nice gardens.
some pretty good weed, yeah.
And now you got me going again because anybody who grows weed or knows people who grows weed, it is a wonderful thing.
It is.
It's a beautiful, wonderful thing.
I hear that she even sings to her plants.
Many people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's personal relationships for people that are sick. If they're well enough to be able to have a garden, that garden gives them positive energy.
Yeah.
It gives them some health that they don't otherwise get.
Yeah.
It can be very, very therapeutic.
And the plants get stuff from us too. Positive energy and stuff.
Well, the plants have taken over the world. Right?
Oh, are they?
That's their strategy.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, the cannabis plant conspired a long time ago to take over the world, and they thought, well, the way to do that is to get to be friends of the humans, right? So they get humans to fall in love with them.
Yeah, that's it.
And then they tell their friends about them, and then pretty soon everybody's got some beautiful cannabis buds there, and before they do anything serious, they smoke a joint.
And then we all sing the Partridge Family.
So it's the cannabis that's in there helping you make those decisions. So when you think you're making a decision because you smoked a joint and now you can see clearly and it's all about love, that's probably just the cannabis plant.
Oh, so that's what that song was about. I can see clearly now, the clouds are gone. Smoke that joint.
So cannabis provides clarity for human beings.
It does.
And the ability to make loving choices as opposed to fear-based choices.
Yeah.
And in that sense, cannabis has taken over the world. So, and others think that humans are pretty much just evolved mushrooms.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
how's that?
On the chain of
if somebody eats me, they're going to go on a trip.
We are closer to mushrooms in our DNA makeup than we are to a lot of other things.
I thought we were close to pigs.
Mushrooms are kind of, well, they're fleshy. They're
they have no veins.
Well, there's the veins. I mean, the mycelium, the stuff that goes through the soil and connects all of it. Looks an awful lot like veins. Looks a lot like neural networks.
You can see my veins.
And there again, the mushrooms have been using human beings to have an influence on politics and things for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the earliest cave drawings.
Well, yeah, I shared that on my wall. There's a lot of mushrooms and religion and stuff like that too.
There are.
Yes.
A lot of stories about mushrooms. Mushrooms are weird because they're not all the same at all. Cannabis.
Some will kill you.
Cannabis, you get a bag of weed. They're cannabis flower tops dried, and they can look vastly different one to the other.
Yeah.
So many different strains, even that whole range of from relaxant to stimulant.
Yeah.
But mushrooms, like you said, from ecstasy to death.
Yeah.
Like you got to be careful what you take out there.
You got to have that book with you.
Well, then somehow somebody had to write a book.
Yeah.
That wasn't easy.
No.
go out there and test a bunch of mushrooms. How long do you how far into your book do you get before somebody else has to take over for you? Those ones didn't work. All right, we'll continue our search and not use those ones again.
Probably some university did research or something. Probably. Let's do this for education.
There's been a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. Oh, that white weekend didn't work out, so let's try this weekend.
I mean, just like at Woodstock when they had the brown acid going around. Don't touch the brown acid. Throughout history, there's been warnings. Don't eat those mushrooms that got this going on, man. You see those colors? Like, don't eat that stuff. Yeah. So we tell one another, and we do it that way. But
well,
anyway.
just to follow simple rule: if you see a mushroom, don't eat it right away.
You know what's kind of funny is that they don't make the poisonous mushrooms illegal.
No.
So they're not illegal, but the ones that have a psychological effect, they're all illegal.
Yeah.
So if it's not poisonous, it won't kill you. It's not going to make you sick. It's not going to hurt you. But it's going to send you on a trip of self-evaluation, of societal evaluation, and those are illegal.
Isn't it that they're illegal once they're dry? I remember in the 80s we used to go to farmers' fields and we wouldn't be arrested until the mushrooms were dry.
You got arrested for dried mushrooms?
No, but people would say that.
They'd say it.
Yeah, they would say it. But once if they were wet, the police couldn't do anything because they weren't magic mushrooms and didn't have that.
They didn't think they were magical yet.
I guess it's something about being dry. Yeah, I don't know if you can eat a wet mushroom, magic mushroom, and still have the same effect.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to find that out.
You think so?
Maybe by personal experience. Maybe
we do some research. I'm sure somebody could probably even answer that question for us. There's a lot of people that do mushrooms.
Let's just see, shall we? Can you eat psychedelic mushrooms when they're fresh and wet and still get the psychological effect?
What's it say?
Magic mushrooms are a type of mushrooms that contain chemicals of psilocybin.
Yeah.
These chemicals cause you to show results with wet. It says 5 best ways to consume magic mushrooms. Effects and risks. We'll try this one. 5 best ways to consume. Let's see.
But those are always dried, right? Hit the X.
Yeah,
there's a little X up in the corner.
Okay, so I can't easily find that.
Here.
A little bit of research.
You talk, I'll look.
Glenn's pretty good at finding out stuff like that. So, the Karma Cup is happening, although it should probably be called the Sellout Cup.
Did you see that?
Well, it prohibits non-legal entities. Do you believe that?
Yes.
I don't believe that. They don't get it. They don't get it that continuing the prohibition against people that aren't part of the legal market is the opposite of what we've been fighting for, is what the opposite of what these cups and all these other protests have been about forever. So yeah, I don't think that's a good idea at all. I wouldn't take part in that. I hear the weed is crap anyway that is going out from the legal marketplace into the Karma Cup. But that's a shame. That's a real shame that they've gone that direction and that they're prohibiting access to people that have products that they would like to have in that cup because they're not part of the legal marketplace. And they're supporting the collection of taxes and taxes that are being used against those same people that they're prohibiting, the people that are us and our friends and have been forever, the people that brought us to where we are right now. They're still being persecuted. The penalties have been increased. The enforcement dollars have been increased. And we should not be contributing to that evil regime of protecting the Trudeau cartel. And these cups should not be doing that. So
okay.
I'm not happy with that.
Are we ready?
Go ahead.
Okay, fresh mushrooms are said to be more potent compared to their dried counterparts.
There you go.
More on this below. The downside, however, is that it could be a challenge when it comes to storage.
Right, to keep them fresh.
Yeah. The average shelf life of fresh mushrooms stored in the fridge is 5 to 10 days. Beyond that, you increase the risk of decay, which would be a waste of money and a fine product.
Right.
All right.
So kind of the opposite there. That if you can eat them when they're fresh and wet, they're maybe more potent.
So if you're looking to have your mushrooms in your possession longer, drying them is the best way to go about it. Right. So, but you can eat them wet. It says, we did mention that you might get a stronger kick if you consume mushrooms fresh. This is a huge topic of debate, but it's nonetheless being the general consensus among many users. Storage issues aside, trippers who tend to be on fresh mushrooms often report a more intense trip. Okay, and there's also the weight issue. A derived variant is largely devoid of water, with fresh ones weighing about 10 times heavier.
Right.
So you'd have to eat a lot more wet ones, I guess, in order. Is that what they're trying to say?
Well, I think if you're going to buy them, they'd be more expensive if you're going to buy them by the gram or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot
So
more
I
expensive
wonder
to
if
buy
you
the
can
fresh
get
ones.
the same high on a gram of wet as a gram of dried.
Well, it sort of indicates that maybe you get a more intense high off the wet ones.
Yeah.
I get a
But
plenty.
the
I get a
wet is
plenty.
heavier, right?
I get a plenty intense high off of the dry ones.
Yes.
And if I want to increase that, I just eat more.
Okay, that's all you do, eh?
That's how that works.
Well, we'll have to see. We have to try it out fresh one time. Like, maybe put them on a steak or something.
So I met some guys the other day, and they saw them. I was actually smoking a joint. That's what they keyed on. And then they said, "Hey, do you ever do mushrooms?" And I said, "Yeah, I provide mushrooms for people as well." He goes, "Oh, so do we." So they've got a store on Commercial Drive.
Yeah.
These guys. We had a nice little chat there, and they were saying that they were thinking that maybe there should be like a 420 event for mushrooms.
Ooh.
So that'd be interesting.
Mushroom Mondays.
I don't know what day they would have that on, if there's a particular date that corresponds with any of that or anything, but that was interesting.
There's probably an International Mushroom Day.
There might be.
There is.
Oh, okay.
There's. Come on.
So,
jeez.
So nice to see that they've got stores popping up all over the place where you can get mushrooms. There's a lot of them. It seems to be quite the thing here, and there doesn't seem to be any enforcement on that here in Vancouver. Touchwood. Sunday, October 15th is National Mushroom Day.
There you go. There's your answer.
Coming right up in just a month from now. So, would the government allow for a place where you could go and get some mushrooms or bring your mushrooms and consume mushrooms with other like people? A safe place to go. Because, mushrooms, psychedelics, you shouldn't be driving for sure. Could be a really cool place. They could, black lights or
talk to Dana.
Whatever. We will talk to Dana about that. But I'm trying to segue into a point here about the need for people to be able to get together and do these things. And you were alluding to that earlier as well.
Lounges, like a mushroom.
Like lounges,
Have a mushroom lounge too.
Like in Toronto, they had some lounges that I don't think they still operate myself, as far as I know, as cannabis lounges. Here in Vancouver, we've had Cannabis Culture Lounge for, 20-some years, more than that. And they have been pretty constantly under some sort of threat, always. They were raided a few times over the years there by the cops. But now it's the CSU, and it's the provincial government of all things. This NDP government has not made it easier for the Cannabis Culture Lounge to exist, and they are being severely threatened. And so what they need is support.
Yeah.
And so if you've found value in having a lounge, or if you would find value in having a lounge, if you could pen a letter and send it off, it goes to support@cannabisculture.com, and there's a form letter that you can fill out as well. And you can go to cannabisculture.com/support. So those two different things, and that's the website. And you can sign your name to that support letter as well and get an idea of how you might want to craft your own letter. So at cannabisculture/support, you can go and fill out the form letter and see all that. And at support@cannabisculture.com, you can provide your own letter of support for them. And it's really important and crucial that we do this.
And this is for the Board of Variants in Vancouver. The more letters that they get, the more that the board sees that the people support this, and that it should be allowed to continue. And it's been more than 20 years, because I remember Cannabis Culture from the 1990s, that lounge. So it's got to be at least 40 years probably.
No,
you don't think the 80s?
Well, Mark had his store across the street before he had where they are now.
Yeah.
And where they are now, That wasn't always a lounge. The upstairs for the first while was used for other things.
Yeah.
So it's 20-some years.
20, because we're in 2023, so it didn't start in 2000, right?
No, it was there before that.
Yeah, so I would say the 90s, right?
Yeah, late 90s.
Late 90s, yeah.
So, 25 years.
25 years, yeah.
It might be 28 years, probably not though. Probably more like 25 or 26 years that they've had the lounge. But they've always kept it open. It has been a safe haven for people for a long time. For people from out of town, for people even within Vancouver, they can't have a safe place to use.
Yeah.
There's been so many great parties there over the years. I can think of a few. That,
oh yeah.
Yeah. We've met there many times to celebrate victories in the courts.
Volunteer meetings for 420.
So much has happened there, and Jody and Mark in the past, but Mark hasn't been involved for a long time now. But Jody is still involved, in Jeremiah, and they have really struggled to keep that open. They've been under personal threat for a long time, and the risk is pretty significant to them to be keeping it open. Mm-hmm. But they continue to do that. In fact, as we all know, cannabis culture has been at the heart of the legalization movement since early days here, for sure.
Without them, this show wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the platform without them, right?
I'm sure I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we wouldn't have any form of legalization, without that. Even though the legalization we have is abhorrent to all of us at Cannabis Culture, it is not what we've been fighting for at all. It's a horrible facade of cannabis for the rich, by the rich, that excludes the most important people that we as a movement have always been most concerned about, and that's the people that need it on a daily basis and need it for medical reasons, and just freedom in general, and the savings of tax dollars. And there's no tax dollars being saved with legalization. They've added money to enforcement. They're taking Canadian dollars at these stores in large numbers to pad the pockets of rich people, but also to pad the pockets of government. It's like people are paying fines for using cannabis in a very civilized and formal system where you can walk into the store, they will give you your cannabis, but then you're going to pay your fine right there for having that cannabis. In the price that you're paying.
Hidden in the price, right?
Yeah, hidden in the price, and not even very well hidden. It's a nasty thing that they've done here. It's smart on their end because they've divided the community a lot, especially people in rural Canada where you never could get proper cannabis at all.
Yeah.
For them to now have a store that they can walk into, they don't mind paying those high prices for the most part, unless they're medical and daily users, then they get it. But a lot of Canadians don't get it. They think, hey, look, it's illegal now and I'm not going to get arrested for this. I don't have to go to court for this. I'm not going to have to worry about the cops on this. But what they're not understanding is that the price should not be where it is at all, that there should be much cheaper options available for people, especially for those people that need it and the daily users. So as long as the government is doing this the way they're doing it, we're going to continue to fight them. And cannabis culture has been at the forefront of that fight since the beginning here. Vancouver has really led the way. Many other good activists in Canada, I will say. But I've talked to most of those activists, and it was because of the momentum that we were gaining here in Vancouver that allowed them to feel some strength and power in being an activist where they were. They leaned heavily on what we were doing here. In many cases, Mark Emery would finance those activism initiatives that were happening in Toronto and in Alberta and Saskatchewan and other places. And so that cannabis culture really, and not just here in Canada, but down in the States, around the world, cannabis culture, through the sale of cannabis seeds to begin with in the first place, and then just with good business practices, has been able to help finance the legalization movements around the world. Yeah. And now they need us more than ever, and they need us. We've needed them forever. Now they need us, and we still need momentum, and we still need action, and we still need people to be inspired and angered and active in not accepting what the government is providing in legalization here, we can't stand for this. This is not okay at all. It's hurting the most vulnerable amongst us. It's still, if it continues like this, then the legalization of cannabis in Canada did not stop the immoral flow of an outrageous amount of tax dollars that's being used now as a protection racket to protect government interests in cannabis. But prior to so-called legalization, all that money was used in enforcement just to pad the pockets of the cops and the courts and the people with sniffer dogs and all these other sub-reasons why cannabis was made illegal and kept illegal for 100 years here in Canada. It's a bunch of people making money off it, and all that money is coming out of taxpayers' pockets. And so with the legalization that we're being, that's being hoisted upon us at this point, it doesn't stop that. And that was also, looking after the needy, the medical users, the daily users was our number one priority in the movement to legalize cannabis. Number two had to be, ending the ridiculous expenditures of our precious tax dollars on trying to stop people from accessing cannabis, all of those things. Number three would be getting people their records purged so they're no longer criminals, getting apologies nice. and some sort of reparations for people who demonstrably had their lives significantly ruined by these outrageous laws that were never justified. Mm-hmm. People that lost their liberty and spent time in jail, lost their jobs, lost their families, lost their homes. These people need to be compensated. There needs to be a huge, huge apology along with reparations for the damage that was done by immoral governments and immoral, unethical corporate leaders for 100 years here in Canada, longer in the States, still going on in many places around the world. There is zero justification. This is a plant that provides benefits.
Health benefits.
Health benefits.
Mental
many
benefits.
of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't harm anybody. Nobody's getting addicted. Nobody's dying from it. Nobody is struggling with the evils of cannabis use. It's not a thing. Never was. The government has tried to make it a thing. They've lied about it. They've said that it makes people violent and insane, and all the rest of the lies that they've told. That's why we deserve an apology. That's why they need to provide reparations. I would love to see the government provide serious financial reparations to people who have simply demonstrably, so it's easy to demonstrate, this person lost their job, they lost their family, they were fined a bunch of money, had whatever, that they deserve financial reparation for that. I'd love to see governments go after some of those corporations that spent millions and billions of dollars lobbying governments to make prohibition and to maintain prohibition, that those people are very culpable, they're very criminal in this conspiracy against this plant and the people who would use it. It is a huge conspiracy that involves an amazing amount of corporate players, political players, and law enforcement people, and from many other walks of life who have played a role in keeping cannabis demonized and prohibited and illegal. And today still, we have legalization, but we have illegal cannabis. And we still have an apparatus that costs huge amounts of money being supported by taxpayers to deal with that illegal cannabis. And it never should have been illegal in the first place. There's nothing criminal about growing plants of cannabis, of helping people get access to cannabis plants or using it yourself. There is nothing in the least way criminal about any of that. So for the governments to have been using the criminal law and lies as justification to support the financial gains of all of these different groups is a criminal conspiracy that needs to be exposed and extinguished, and there needs to be apologies and reparations as a result. This is not a joking matter. This is not something we should just slough off and say, oh well. And I know that cannabis allows that to happen, that cannabis allows you to let things go, to forgive people, to just move on. But I'll tell you, until they stop it, We can't move on from it. We must demand that apology. We must demand that our people be compensated for the serious harm that's been done to them by these abhorrent rules and laws that had no justification, never did, still don't, never will, never could. Doesn't matter that the doctors will tell you that maybe it harms the developing brain. Bullshit! And what doesn't harm the developing brain about lying to that developing brain or allowing it access to alcohol, pharmaceutical drugs, toxic chemicals in food products? So never was there any ever justification for this plant being illegal. They had to lie about it. They had to lie through their teeth about it. They had to tell the biggest lies possible to convince people that anybody involved in this drug, this plant, this dried plant with these resin glands of chemicals that have interactions with human beings, they had to tell serious lies about those interactions resulting in violence and addiction and death.
What's up with that, bud? Is that keef all over
it? It's got keef all over it. This is a moon rock.
That's a moon. That's supposed to be a moon rock.
That's supposed to be a moon rock.
Oh yeah, no, that's not a moon rock.
Well, it's somebody's attempt at a moon rock.
Is it? Okay.
So they put some sort of cannabis resin, sprayed it onto the bud. Okay. And then put the buds in a bag full of keef and gave it a good shake and gave it a good press and tried to get that keef right inside the, But it's not a true moon rock the way moon rocks have been made. I mean,
you can just take a bud and roll it in some distillate and then throw some keef on it.
And you'd have this.
Yeah, well, that's not.
But distillate. You wouldn't have well, it might be distillate. I don't know what they're using on that.
Yeah. But you said it was sprayed on.
I don't know that even. I'm imagining that.
Okay, you
maybe it was soaked. It's supposed to be soaked.
It's supposed to be like shatter.
But you're supposed to be able to open it up and find the liquid inside.
Oh, really?
Typically.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Is there liquid?
I don't know who has the patent on moon rocks.
Do moon rocks have liquid in them?
Ask the great goddess.
I don't know, because
what would happen if we asked
water on the moon? They haven't found water, so.
Well, moon rocks do have water.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the Chinese just found some water.
Oh, and there is actual water too.
There is.
Now, if I ask Google if moon rocks are supposed to have liquid inside them,
let's see.
It's going to be talking about rocks from the moon.
You think so?
Yeah. Got to do it slightly different.
Wow.
Do cannabis moon rocks have liquid in their centers? No. Marijuana moon rocks. What are they?
Did they come from the
moon? Are moon rocks
moon?
supposed to be dry? What do they put in moon rocks? Moon rocks are made by taking a nugget of marijuana and dipping it in or spraying it with concentrate or hash oil.
Yeah.
They're usually made with Girl Scout cookies, the weed strain, not the mints.
Yeah. You get chocolate or vanilla.
Flour and concentrate. And not like flour that you get at the store.
Concentrate would be the distillate.
And concentrate. Yeah. But can be, geez, what did I just do there? But can be made with any strain. Of course it can.
Yeah.
I don't know what's with the Girl Scout cookies. The coated nugget is then rolled in keef.
Yeah.
So, for me, there's no requirement of liquid in the middle.
No.
But we've had people look at this and go, I don't think that's a real moon rock.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It looks, it's caked.
It is caked. It's pretty hard, too. So I don't know what they sprayed it with, but yeah.
Well, I would imagine it's a cannabis resin.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah. Cool.
I haven't agreed to have it here, but I did try it. So. Anyway, I was on quite a tangent there.
I want to try that dose stuff there. What do you go dose or whatever you call it?
Dogod.
Yeah, Dogod. Yeah.
You'd have to go to the RV for that. We're going to do that shortly. But
yeah, I'll check it out.
Do you want me to have them prepare you a joint of Dogod?
Sure, you can do that. While you're on the show?
I can do anything.
How do you do that? You just message George?
Yeah.
You're going to message
Is George still here?
I don't know. I don't know.
George
Probably not.
Home.
Probably not, yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to be Adam.
It has to be Adam, eh?
And should we call him? Should we just call him?
Yeah, sure. Let's just freak him out.
Let's put him on the show here.
Yeah, put him. Yeah.
We'll tell him he's won.
You gotta put on speaker.
Oh yeah, you put on speaker.
There you go.
This is Adam. He's been on the show a few times. He provides us with really good gummies and.
Why is Neil calling me when he's live on his show?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe they're watching the show.
Hello.
Is that Adam?
Yeah.
Hi, Adam. This is Neil Magnuson from the THC Show.
You just won!
You're the winner!
Yay! For answering the phone, hello, you just won.
And but before we can give you your prize, there's a skill testing requirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need you to find some Dough God cannabis strain
And roll
up a nice fat joint for Glenn to try when we come out there in about 20 minutes. All right.
Thanks.
All right. Always wanted to do that. Always wanted to be on the
You
other.
won for saying hello!
Yeah. Because you answered your phone, you are a winner. All we need is all your personal
Have
information.
you come to say hi?
Hi, Sadie.
You don't usually pop up here and say, hey, I'm on to be on the show.
Yeah, hi, Sadie.
Yeah, there you go.
She's a good kitty cat.
Yeah, I gotta watch out.
Oh, yeah, you're allergic to
Well, if I get close to my nose and my eyes, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, she'll sleep on your head if you let her.
Probably, yeah.
No, that's not that.
Oh, there we go. We're gonna do the back end.
Yeah, she's gonna give you the
okay.
that, you know.
Right, you only give me a couple pats. I'm just.
So, I guess you get my point.
Yes.
We need to have lounges. We need to have proper legalization. We need low barrier access, both on the side of consumers who don't need to be, showing ID and going through all these hoops and all these barriers that they have to, and not even still being able to access proper dose edibles because they just don't make them available. Period. All that needs to change, and we need tokers lounges for sure, and. They need to supply us with an apology and some reparations. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I feel about all that. There was something, talk about tokers lounges.
Oh, Johnny B is going to be at that grow.
Well, I get there. It's on.
You're gonna get there. Okay.
I'm going to get. I'm going to go through here now.
All right.
So tokers breath. You and I last week talked a little bit about how for testing for cannabinoids.
Yeah.
For people that are chronic users, long-term chronic users, you're testing positive for a year or a month.
6 months.
A month, 6 months. Who knows?
Yeah, up to 6
a
months.
long time.
Depends.
What they're trying to do is find a way to determine whether or not you are under the influence of THC or not.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do.
They're not going to be able to.
Well, who knows? But to date, they certainly have not been able to. They just did a project to try to figure out if they could build a machine or figure out whether or not a user had used in the last hour or not, and they couldn't do it.
No, they did a test where people had smoked, and they measured it, and then they did the same thing for people who hadn't smoked.
In a month.
Yeah, and the measurements were pretty much the same.
Yeah, they couldn't distinguish who was the ones who had used right away and who
Yeah,
hadn't.
because they still had it in their system.
Anyway, there's that. Just, keep that under your hat in case you need to use it in whatever jurisdiction you're living in and they decide that there's some sort of breathalyzer that they can use on you to determine whether or not you were high.
Yeah.
What it needs to come down to is, were you driving erratically and irresponsibly? That's what it needs to come down to.
Were you causing problems?
Yeah, exactly.
People's lives at danger.
Not what was in your saliva, not what was in your head, just were you or were you not competently moving that vehicle down the road. But anyway, so
you can not even smoke for a whole month and just finish exercising, get in your car, get pulled over, and you can be positive.
Yeah.
Because THC is stored in your fat cells, and when you exercise, you burn those fat cells, which releases that small amount of THC.
Not enough to be impaired or high.
No.
Although there's a high from exercising, and maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, because when I got off a bike, I sat down and go, wow.
Oh, for sure.
You feel like that, right?
Yeah, there's a runner's high and there's an exercise high for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe that's more so for people who have THC in their fat cells.
In their fat cells, right? Because that's where it's
stored. But I think it's for people who don't have that too.
Yeah,
Well, there's.
I don't know. I've
there's
smoked
the
42 years, but I've been smoking for 42 years. So.
See, THC is a molecule, and it's a molecule that is identical to molecules that are created within the human body without ingesting any outside THC. Mm-hmm. All of the cannabinoids have mimics of what the human body creates. We have an endocannabinoid system, and we are able to come up with these molecules that assist our body in all of its functions. Yeah. That's just the way it is.
Our immune systems don't attack that either.
So, you probably have in your fat cells some of these molecules that are identical to THC that provide euphoria when you run or whatever you're exercising.
Yeah.
So there's that. And you were alluding to the Grow Up conference that's coming up October 1st.
Yeah.
In Victoria.
In Victoria, yes.
And Jody's going to be speaking at that, so that's awesome. A public appearance from Jody. Johnny B's going to be there. I don't know what it's all about.
No, I know that Jody's going to video or a post saying that she's going to be talking about why we need lounges.
Right.
And
So she's not there fully.
She'd be a perfect person to do that.
Well, she's not there fully in favor of the legal system, so that's good. She's still there to protest about the lack of lounges, which is a big flaw.
But even a lounge that has legal weed in it.
Well, sure.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe she is there advocating for a lounge with legal weed, but I know Jody, and I'll tell you, she's there to advocate that this weed be legal, and this weed be legal, and there be no illegal weed, because illegal weed is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anybody can grow weed. It's a plant. It grows wild. It grows on its own. It's like mushrooms. You know, those seeds go everywhere. If you've ever been where you've seen a hemp field, we talked about hemp fields the other day. So hemp fields, as far as the eye can see, in rolling hills in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even in BC, there are large hemp fields. What you see at the hemp fields is swarms of birds.
Yeah.
So these birds are just, going from plot to plot to plot.
The seed.
They want the seeds.
Yeah.
And they take those seeds and they shit them out all over the place.
Yeah.
So cannabis grows wild, folks, all over the place.
Always
because
did.
of that. Always did.
Yeah.
Those seeds will mutate themselves into higher THC forms because that's what the plant does. It's what it wants to do. It wants to go back to its natural reset of how many, amounts of different cannabinoids it has there. There's a ratio depending on the environment that it's dealing with, what it creates, and it will create more THC if allowed to have more generations. So anyway, the point is we can't capitulate and go along with and comply with the requirements of the Cannabis Act and legal cannabis in Canada. It is not doable. It is not okay. It is not right. And I really hope that the Grow Up conference is going to address a bunch of that.
Yeah.
I
hope so too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Karma Cup is doing some advocating for more inclusion, while at the same time allowing taxes to be collected that are going to be used against people that they're not including.
In the email, it said they had no open market. It wasn't going to be no open market because.
And they were prohibiting people from entering the contest that weren't legal.
Wow.
And somehow some people think that's okay. I don't think that's okay. I don't think legalization is okay. I don't think anybody at Pot TV thinks legalization is okay. We want legalization, but not based on a Cannabis Act.
Let's have a true cup. Black market against government weed. Let's really test it out.
Most of the connoisseurs I know are not smoking government weed.
No,
I don't think they would want to. So if you had a contest like that, what would happen is that all of the non-government weed, the people would be testing by smoking it.
Yeah.
All of the government weed, they'd be testing it by looking at it, maybe venturing a smell or two.
You'd have to make it
but nobody's smoking that shit.
You'd have to make it anonymous. You wouldn't really. You'd have to.
Well,
make
and
then
then you're foisting upon people a brand of cannabis that many don't want to smoke. I don't want to smoke it on principle.
Well, then don't be part of the judging.
Right, I wouldn't.
Okay,
I wouldn't take part in that.
If
legal weed was part of it, and
if it was
to be judged
and government, you wouldn't.
On principle.
Yes.
I'm not consuming any legal weed on principle.
Okay.
It's not because it's crap, although for the most part that's certainly what it started out to be. I don't believe that's what it's going to end up being. I think that the government is not stupid. If they're going to monetize cannabis legalization, they're going to come up with the craft-grown, connoisseur-grown cannabis that is everything that a connoisseur would want to have eventually. And it's going to be very, very expensive. And maybe it'll have more pesticides, or maybe they'll have organic. I believe they'll have organic. I believe that they'll come up with all of these different things, and they'll just charge through the nose for it, and eventually all that will be there. But it's not about that for me. It's not about whether or not, hey, here's some Redbeard weed that he grew, and he stands behind, and you can smoke that, and it's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
For me, it's not about that. It's about what taxes were paid on that bud of weed, and what are those tax dollars being used for? Are they still dragging people into courts? Are they still breaking into people's homes? Are they still taking people's kids away from them? Are all of these things still happening? Is the stigma of cannabis consumers that's not legal cannabis still being perpetuated by the sale and the tax being collected on that bud of weed. I love and respect Redbeard, and I'm sure he's growing some good weed, and it's going into that legal marketplace. But the taxes that it's generating, that they're being used for evil things, I don't support, and I can't respect, and I won't be involved with. So for me, it's all about principle. It's not about just a stance that the cannabis in legal stores is no good. You could say that in the beginning of cannabis stores, because I don't think there was much in there that was good.
It had stuff that had been sitting around for a couple of years prior to it and stuff like that too. So hopefully that's
there was none of that, beautiful craft cannabis grown in fresh, stinky buds or anything like that.
Well, that stuff's like $20 a gram anyways.
I did drive to Kamloops for the opening of BC's very first cannabis store in a caravan with Jeremiah and a number of other people. We all drove. John Burfellow was there. Yeah. And so we drove up there. I didn't go into the store. I went up there to not go into the store. I stood out the front in my cannabis leaf suit and talked to people in the lineup. And
well, Bob Wolseley, myself, and Derek from BC Bud Guys, we all stood in front of the legal stores and gave away gray market bud. Yeah. Right? And the police came and asked us what we were doing. We said, well, we're just giving up the weight up to 30 grams, which we're allowed.
Yeah, I remember that.
As a gift, right?
It was a great demonstration.
It was like, Here,
I'm not going to name names, but some of our entourage went into the store, purchased the best cannabis that they had available in the store. Of course, you're not able to roll it up and smoke it, or even look at it or smell it, let alone roll it up and smoke it. But took it back to the hotel room, and I went along. I left when they started lighting it up, but there was a process of having first a look at all the different samples, having a smell of all the different samples, and then they were going to light that stuff up, and I wasn't staying in the room for that. So. But the reports were that it was crap. It was harsh, it was dry, it didn't taste very good. No. And that was the best stuff that they had. So it's improved since then. And my position is not about it not being good cannabis. I think they can come up with good cannabis at some point if they haven't already. They will. It's about the ethics of a system where there's legal cannabis and there's illegal cannabis.
Yeah, it should be. Yes.
And the money that's being wasted and the lives that are being ruined in the process, to do with illegal cannabis still, are more than enough to fight for, or fight against. And so we will continue. So the Grow Up Conference in Victoria coming up on October 1st.
A couple of weeks from now.
There's our court case coming up October 3rd here at 222 Main Street at 9 o'clock in the morning, courtroom 304. Be there early. Be part of the group that meets there and has some sacred herb and some words to say. And we do a Pot TV video and talk about the potential for corruption that we're about to meet inside the courtroom, and we'll see what happens in there. And the more the better, for sure. Bring your cannabis substitution hoodies if you have them.
T-shirts.
If not, we have them available at $20 a hoodie, and all the money goes to the CSP. Nobody makes any personal money off of that at all. And so, let's make a showing at court. And certainly I believe that through Jack Lloyd, my lawyer, that he's prepared, and we're gonna put on quite a show in the courtroom about the right and wrongs of this so-called legalization and the position that Health Canada has taken, that they're wanting us to turn our backs on the hundreds of people that rely on us for our life-saving option. And we'll just see what the courts have to say about all that. So that's coming up. And there's nothing else on my list, really, I don't think.
All right. I'll see you.
We covered it all.
Next week. I'll see you on Thursday, too.
Yeah, well, we see each other a fair bit, but we'll see these people.
Yeah,
we'll see these people next Tuesday.
I'll be back next week to see you guys.
Yeah. Don't worry about me, but you'll see them next.
He's always going to be here.
You get to see way too much of me. But these people here, they don't get enough of you, I'm sure, and so it's good to know that you're back every week. And
I do in a video area occasionally on my show.
You do your own stuff there.
Sometimes, yeah, I just thanked you in my last video.
It's on the Glen Wells page.
It is, yeah. You can find me.
And then there's Canamatch.
Canamatch.ca. We just updated everything.
Oh yeah.
It's still growing.
So for those of you who don't know,
messages. I've got a new person.
This is the coolest thing, cannamatch.ca, for those of you who don't know. It's officially a dating site for people that like cannabis, so it gets that question out of the way right off the bat, and you can just move on to more important things. But it's also just a great way to have community, to meet people, to get to know people. There's not always that sexual connotation going on with these things. It's many times about, hey, I'm new in town, I don't know anybody. Do you know anybody with some dank? Could we get together and have a session?
Make somebody's living room a lounge.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff like that going on.
Yeah.
If we can't have our own cannabis lounges, we'll make our own cannabis lounges.
That's it,
Your front room and kitchen could be it.
Yeah.
So cannamatch.ca, definitely check that out. Join the community. And it's one way that we can stay united as best we can here with all of this. You got anything going on the feed there?
Just Gazu says he feels that all Commonwealth countries should stand together, and I definitely agree with that.
All people should stand together.
All right, we'll see you next week. I'll go back to being a producer.
All right.
You
do that.
See ya.
And a fine job you do with that, man.
Thank you.
Well, for anybody who's a new viewer of the show, you may have been wondering about some of the things we've talked about, and I do at this time usually like to do a recap of what it's all about. I'll try to be brief and spare all those people who've heard this for 4 years. But, essentially, I've been fighting for the legalization of cannabis for about 25 years, although it's been since I was 15 years old and I first started smoking cannabis that I've advocated for it not being a crime, and I knew right away that I wasn't a criminal and that the government was wrong about what they were saying about cannabis. And so with that knowledge and motivation, I ended up volunteering for the cannabis rallies that were happening, 420 and Cannabis Day and the like, the Global Marijuana March. That led me to a partnership with David Malmo Levine, where we opened a store at Main and Hastings called the Herb School, Vancouver School of Drug War History and Organic Cultivation. We provided cannabis for people that would come into that neighborhood. It's a pretty nasty neighborhood, but we did get a number of people coming in there. And we were a success for 3.5 years until the powers that be decided to do an undercover investigation and raid the place and put David in jail for a while. And all of that at the time gave me an understanding of the value of the proper dose edibles of between 30 and 250 milligrams, whatever, in assisting people through withdrawal. What we did get in that neighborhood was a bunch of people coming in there that we didn't expect at Main and Hastings. I don't know why we didn't expect it, but because we thought there was such a divide between the hard drug users and the cannabis users, that the hard drug users, they just thought cannabis was nothing and it didn't really provide anything for what they were looking for. They were in serious need of pain relief or whatever, and they needed hard drugs to do that. And so we felt that cannabis didn't get a lot of respect from the hard drug users. We didn't expect to see them in our establishment, but that wasn't the case. And in fact, over the course of the 3.5 years that we were there, we had a number of people come in there and tell us about how cannabis was putting them on a different path, that it was the edibles that allowed them to get right through the night without using the other drugs, that it was the edibles that managed to get them through 4 or 5 nights of withdrawal, and that the edibles were responsible for saving these people's lives. And that was what we heard over and over again, was that cannabis has saved my life by getting me off of those other drugs. There was actually back then, at the time, we were at the tail end of a overdose epidemic that had happened in Vancouver in the form of what they called China White, which was probably just the fentanyl version, the concentrated version of heroin, a much stronger version of heroin. And that's what's happened again here. So when in 2016, when reports were coming out about people dying of overdose from much more powerful drugs than what they were expecting, and it became a public health emergency, armed with the knowledge that I had from the Herb School, I went and presented to the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users Organization an idea of making cannabis edibles easily available, as easy as possible for people to get, which means giving them away for free, without any barriers. And so armed with their full support, I went and tried to get support from the city, and I also presented the idea to the VPD, just to let them know that what we were planning was to give away large amounts of these cannabis high-dose edibles. There was no legalization of any sort at that time, but this was what was going to be an answer to the opioid crisis. And so we went forward and did all of that, and we ran the Cannabis Substitution Program out of the Vandu offices for 3.5 years, during which time we got the city on board with a unanimous vote on a proposal to support low barrier access based on what we were doing. The meeting with the city that we had resulted in us understanding that we would get a storefront, and we did that. We moved into the storefront and structured a model of dispensing cannabis, which allowed for the sale of cannabis along with the giving away of cannabis, which is what we had been doing for the first 3.5 years. Everything was by donation and everything was free. Once we had to pay the rent and staff wages and other things, we needed to have a way to do that, and so we formed a collaboration with a for-profit dispensary with the Cannabis Substitution Program. That collaboration continues on to this day under the auspices of the Serious Hope Society, and the Healing Wave Dispensary makes sure that the Cannabis Substitution Program survives and maintains and does all that it's able and needing to do. We were forced out of the storefront after only about 5 months by a government, a civic government, that decided that we'd have to have a federal government on board before they would allow a license from the city. And that was over 3 years ago that we presented our application to Health Canada, and all we got was delays and stalls and excuses and intents to deny during that 3-year period. Although we did initially get a promise for a license, where Mr. Benoit Seguin said during a conference call that they would have licenses for us in early January. And so we always maintained that the city had given us a promise of a license, and the federal government, Health Canada, had given us a promise of a license, and that what we were doing, we had to do because we couldn't stop doing what we were doing. And now that we had the green light to get a storefront, we needed to have the funds to make all that work. So we just went ahead and did what we did and did what we had to do to be able to continue to help the people that we were helping. As I mentioned, a few months later, the city government says, oh, we can't do it till the federal government does, and we apply to the federal government, and they say, well, we'll give you a license in early January that turns into the next January, that turns into last January, that's going to turn into another January by the looks of it, except this time it's going through the courts before that January arrives. And maybe by this coming January, we will have had the courts have a look at what we're doing, have a look at our applications, have a look at the reasons for Health Canada's denial, and make the right choice. And in however it has to happen, be it an exemption, be it a special license of some sort, be it just turning a blind eye with a promise of no raids, whatever. We need some stability and security to be able to continue the program that we're doing here, and we're hoping we can get that through the courts. If we don't, if we fail in that, then there will have to be a new incarnation of the Cannabis Substitution Program that operates in a more clandestine and underground way to try to avoid the enforcement of government that is determined to protect the interests of their greedy, rich owners with respect to the cannabis businesses in Canada. So that's what's going on. We've been now for coming up on 3 years operating out of an RV parked in front of the storefront. Still paying rent on the storefront so that I can have a place to broadcast the show from. No, actually that's not true. Yeah. We're paying rent on the space here because this is where our address is for our application with Health Canada for the most part, and it does give me the ability to have a base of operations for the RV that's just right outside. So we'll go out there and see what's going on. I think the weather report's not going to be as friendly.
Your umbrella ready.
You got an umbrella? Good. I think we have lights in the RV this time.
Do we?
So let's go see what's going on out there.
All right.
Well, as I suspected, it's not quite the positive, sunny, nice days that we've been having.
No, that's
it's not
tomorrow.
raining hard at the moment. It may only just be drizzling, but it has been raining here. And so, you know, we have the RV and we have the tent up. A nice plastic bag. I think I'm going
There you
to
go.
not only clean up the litter, but I'm probably going to be able to use that today.
Recycling. You want to lock the door too while you're there?
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit of a drab day in Vancouver. We got many more coming to the city.
Good, you?
Good, thanks. Heading into another winter.
Yep.
What's most outrageous about all of this is that from our position, we can't stop doing what we're doing because these people would be in severe distress if we did that. In fact, maybe I should do this in there. It is raining a bit.
I know it is. Let's go to the tent. There we go.
With the government taking the position that, you know, we can't operate inside of a store, sure. That we need to wait until we get approval from Health Canada, and our side being, well, we can't wait without continuing what we're doing. We will wait, but we need to keep doing what we're doing because the people that are accessing what we're providing need it, and you know, we're not going to abandon those people.
No.
And as ethical human beings, we're going to keep doing what we're doing until the government supports us. But them not supporting us has resulted in us having to work out of an RV. So instead of having the safety and the dignity and the security of having a storefront that people can walk into and feel like, you know, regular human beings being respected, they have to come to an RV and operate out the side window, like as if they're second-class citizens. And they got to do it in the rain and the cold and the snow and the wind and the heat and all of those other things that happen when you're in a semi-outdoor environment. Even in the RV, it gets bloody cold in there, but we bring heaters in that are propane-based. In the winter, in the summertime, it gets really hot in there, and all we can do is bring in fans. We have no electricity, so we can't use air conditioning. But for even my staff, it's very, very difficult to be operating out of there. In the length of time that we've been in the RV, not only have we had to subject the poor people and the poorest of people that are accessing us to all of these different elements and the indignity of an RV instead of a store, but we've endured numerous break-ins. We've had assaults. We've had the RV burned to the ground. Right now we've got a smashed front window and a broken out side window from a B&E that happened. There's never anything in the RV to steal, or certainly not after the first few. But even in the first few, there was no product left there. But we did have a bunch of things in there that kept getting stolen. Until now, there's nothing left in there. And everything that we use in there, we bring in and take back out at the end of the day. So all of this stuff is a direct result of governments not providing us with a simple piece of paper with a signature on it that would just allow us some security in what we're doing and the ability to do it out of a storefront like everybody else gets to do when they're buying their alcohol or they're buying their cigarettes or they're buying their whatever that you want to go and buy. There's a proprietor and a storefront and a license from some level of government to be able to do that, and it's none of government's business what you're doing unless people are being harmed in some way, in which case they can put some regulations in place and maybe ban the activity. But in the case of what we're doing, in the case of cannabis, never been any justification to ban the activity of human beings, free citizens of a free country, walking into a store and buying some herbs grown by a farmer somewhere because that's what they want. So we're going to fight the fight until we win, and that's what we're doing here.
Damn thing.
Woohoo!
There you go. Thanks.
There you go. All right, now
More for you.
Good time. Oh, it's going to get worse from here. They don't call this the wet coast for nothing.
I know. All right, I'm gonna put this down now as we go in.
All right, here we go.
Okay. Nice, eh? Washington.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Oh, now we're blinded by the light here. Well, Wells, come on in.
So, since told me that I want to fry.
The prize was rolling the joint for Greg.
Yeah, well, they decided that they were going to try and roll a joint and out-joint me. And
No. You answered the phone. That was
You know what, though? And,
Nobody phoned
and they
me.
kicked their ass in the
And you kicked their ass in
Nobody
the...
fucking phoned
So
me.
what, now we got...
Let's see the.
So now we got 3
I got
joints?
exactly.
We got 5
I got one.
Five
joints.
joints. Why? Because you
We
thought
could sell
two was going to be better than
No,
one?
because they failed that many times.
These are his first 2 attempts.
To be fair, I rolled them I rolled 3, but I also rolled them
This
like
is
half
my
the time you guys rolled.
That's your attempt. Where's yours?
Where's his new fatty attempt?
There, right there.
This
That's
was,
pretty good,
This was
yeah.
not
Where's
a
yours?
competition. He had to do
Yeah.
A 1.2.
That
A
was
1.2.
so-
A little bit of Coney, eh?
I wanted to. You know why? Because it acts like a filter.
So yeah, let's light that thing up and see what you think.
I haven't tried that yet. It looks really nice, though, eh?
It does look really nice, yeah.
Check out this one.
So this is the Dough God. It's one of our higher end cannabises.
Can we see it? Is that it right there?
Have we got a sample of the Dough God bud? Where's the
Is that
Dough?
dog right
Where's the
there?
Dough God bud?
Yeah, I know. I should have packed more in. Next time,
That's too
I'll
big
do
a bag to have
1.5.
out here, by the way. We typically only have half bags out
Look
here.
at this pretty stuff.
Oh, there you go. Hold on. Just stay right there.
Yeah, those are big,
Let
though.
me get on this side of the light here. I think that's how that
Let
looks
me just hold
best.
on for a second.
Because the light's
There we
coming
go.
in this way.
Yeah. Oh.
There you
Yeah,
go.
they're
There
big
you go.
buds this time, too.
Big, beautiful, crystally buds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look
Nice.
at these wild rice Krispies.
Oh.
Like, yeah, can you believe that they naturally come
There you
this
go.
large?
Yeah, they grow on trees that large.
It's pretty
Where'd you
cool.
put that bud?
They're magical.
Where do you just toss that bud?
Right there.
Oh,
The Rice
yeah.
Krispie Squares are really popular for people. It's a little bit of nutrition in there. Actually, rice has pretty good nutrition. I don't know what happens when you toast it, but in any case, it is a bit of a meal. It does help in the tummy for people that are hungry, and it delivers some of the sacred
Add
herb
that a
as
little
well.
bit of milk. So you can have break. It's not
Come on,
crackling
right.
hot.
Here, I'm
That's
gonna-
right. They could just break it up into a cereal bowl with some milk. And
There you go.
there you go. You've lived on the streets before, haven't you? Everything is
Yeah, those
cereal.
little boxes
Yeah.
that used to open up.
That's
Yeah.
right. Everything. I don't want to even say so, but there was a fella dropped a thing of yogurt in the lane there, and I was going to clean it up because people are going to walk through it and track it around. I say, hey, was this yours? I'm going to, and he goes, oh, that's fine, I got it. And he takes a spoon and he's spooning it up off the lane into his mouth.
Wow.
Like I'm like, no, let that go, let that go.
So which one is this? Is this Adams?
Anyway.
That's how bad it is for some.
It's kind of doing a Christmas tree light thing with the
Oh,
emperor.
give me a break.
I don't know. That looks pretty good to me.
I don't know. Well, we'll see. Like,
Yeah, can you
maybe-
spark
Yeah,
up
but
yours?
your
Maybe we should do that,
your
okay.
opinion is biased because you were in the competition. you see.
Right?
Yeah. Spark
Well,
up
that's
yours.
true.
Let's see how it
you know.
burns.
Let's see.
While we're live, we'll see.
That's why you need independent judges.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, people in the street.
I'm a strong independent woman. I can do it.
strong independent woman.
Even at the Cannabis Cups, sometimes
Right, man,
people bring a
whatever.
whole bunch of their friends.
I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not really unbiased judging.
Yeah, for sure. That's why the only way to do that is anonymous samples.
Yeah, eh? Yeah,
that's
you don't
the
know.
only, that's the only way.
Yeah.
And
That's why we were
your-
saying that on the show,
Your
yes.
participants don't say what their sample is.
Yeah.
No descriptions, no nothing, and then it can be an unbiased.
It's all good, brother.
Wow, they try to have friends there and give them some inside information, and But you're
Sometimes
right.
you know what your favorite bud
Because
looks like.
the whole point of the Cannabis Cup is to get unbiased judging on a whole bunch of different cannabis products,
Yeah.
so that the people that are looking for their cannabis products will get a sense of what people like and what they don't like.
Yeah.
What are we having a real session here? How many of these?
I
are we
guess
lighting
so.
up? All 5?
I don't
All
know.
we can.
No, come on. There's only 5 of us in here.
Yeah, join each.
We've each put forth our own entries. The spirit of competition, the
Not
spirit
bad.
of helping. It's been a good day.
I'm feeling it.
They're coming
So
off
the
of
point that I was making is that
Camaraderie.
this delay by the government in supporting what we proved early on, we've been demonstrating the efficacy and the safety of what we're doing for going on 7 years. We had it well proved and well established in that first 6 months.
Yeah.
Within 6 months, we had people that were off the hard drugs that were telling us about how much this was of value to them. We had enough for government to support us 6 months in, not 6 years in. And in those 6 years, we have missed helping so many people. We are handcuffed, handicapped. working out of a small little RV or a small little store here in Canada. I get requests from all over the place to help them where they are with what we're doing here for the people. Low barrier access stores need to be in every community in Canada that is struggling with this opioid crisis.
They all are.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which they all are. And the government, in delaying supporting what we have demonstrated clearly since over 6 years ago, is a great harm reduction interdiction
Nice and fluffy.
is criminal. It has killed people. It has resulted in many people not getting the help that they would otherwise have gotten. It has resulted in my staff being traumatized and having to go through heat domes and frigid winters and so much more hardship. The way we have to deal with people through a glass window on the side of the RV is not ideal for helping people that need to be talked to. In the store, we had a perfect little area
It was
set
great.
aside for people to go and sit down and get some counseling, get some talking, get some advice as to where they can go to get help in other ways. All of these things
One arm touch.
would have helped this community and this country in a vastly greater way if we'd have had that support from the government. So they are criminally negligent and delinquent in their duties, and we're going to take them to court, and we're going to prove all of that. And I'm sorry that we have to do that, and I'm sorry that there's so many tax dollars going to be wasted by Health Canada and the Crown trying to fight against what we're just trying to help people with here. It should be easy. It should have cost taxpayers a signature on a piece of paper, and maybe then some sort of a grant to allow us to have what we need to help people. Maybe that's what it should have cost taxpayers. But instead, the government doesn't want to spend money on helping taxpayers get access to what would help them. They're more than willing to spend a whole bunch of money on trying to prevent that from happening. And the reason that they're doing that is to protect the bottom line, the health of the legal stores and the legal producers and their own monopoly on selling cannabis. That's the reason that they're doing it. So I'm very sorry that that's the case here in Canada. I'm sorry that's what's been exposed in our journey here. It never should have happened this way. What should have happened is we should have had a government that embraced what we were doing, thanked us for our efforts and our motivations in what we're doing, and supported us in doing that. We didn't get it. We don't have it yet. Hopefully we can still get it. But it's serious. We need help. We need people to be involved. We need people to write letters, to make phone calls, to send emails, to get involved in actions around your community, post up signs, have rallies, put on little art demonstrations that make the point on street corners without interfering with traffic. All sorts of good things that can be done, that need to be done, to express ourselves to the government. We're not going to take this so-called legalization that supports only the rich and can only be accessed by the rich. We're not going to take it. We're going to keep fighting against it. I'm Bogart in the joint.
It's out now, probably.
I totally forgot what I was doing.
So anyway, help us if you can. A big thanks to all the people that have supported us along the way, to Cannabis Culture for giving me the platform, for Pot TV and all the people involved there, for all the donators to the program. So many people. To Glenn Wells, my producer, who's done so much for the show over the last 4 years. So started out just as a guest to offset some of the monotony of me, and he's continued to do that for all these years, and I thank him a lot.
I love you, man.
And I love you too. I love everybody. Love is the key. Love is the answer. As you go through your life,
I even love these guys too.
they're all lovable people.
Yeah. Some days, anyways. Yeah.
Some are more lovable than others. And those are the people you really got to love more than the others, right? It's not their fault they're not so lovable, you know?
Yeah.
It's a genetic thing. You don't get to tick boxes for a whole bunch of stuff that you are. And even your environment that shaped you, a lot of people didn't choose that and wouldn't have if they'd have been given a choice. So, as you're being kind and loving to most people around you, be especially kind and loving to those people you find it hard to be that way with, because they deserve it, and it's more about you anyway. And if you're not liking people, then you're not feeling good. If you're liking people, then you're feeling a sense of community and camaraderie and humanity. And I recommend that in the short few moments of time that we have before we're no longer here, life is but an instant, really. It's a flutter in a vast timescape. And soon we'll all be gone. And all you will have had was the moments that you had when you were here and those that remember you afterwards. People will remember you if you're kind and if you're nice to them, and especially those people who don't get a lot of people being kind and nice to them. They'll remember you. And you can go to your grave content that at least you were kind to people that maybe it wasn't easy to be kind to, you know? Let's turn the world around. Let's turn it back on its right side up. Let's make love the basis of what drives things here. Let's all respect each other, love each other, stand up for each other, and teach each other that life is short. It's way too serious to take too serious. And that the best way to get through this life of so many downs along with the ups is to just make sure along the way you're looking at things the best way you can and you're having as much fun as you can. We'll see you next week.